Airlines is offering is exceptional. The prices are very competitive, and we believe it will be an open door for Gabonese who want to go abroad, to Europe or Asia or America.
These flights are cheap and offer good service on board, so the main competitor did not hesitate to react. Air France was the main carrier for this profitable route and had a near monopoly on it. Faced with the new competition from Turkish Airlines, Air France will begin offering daily flights on March 11th.
Daily flights will enable us to address 3 issues. 1, offering more flights. 2, at prices accessible to our clients. And 3, to promote Gabon.
Tickets for flights to Gabon were among the most expensive in Central Africa. This new competition will surely lower the cost and comes as a delight to passengers. The new flights also come as good news to Gabonese authorities who have long wanted to make the country a regional hub.
Mobilization continues against the Islamic President Mohamed Morsi as opposition protesters move towards the presidential palace as the new ground for demonstration, urging Egypt's post-revolutionary leader to step down. We have more of that story in this report.
The presidential palace in Cairo is the new gathering place for the Egyptian opposition forces. Muslims, Christians, men and women of all generations come here to have their voices heard. They all accuse Islamist President Mohamed Morsi of betraying the revolution which brought him to power.
I'm trying to express my opinion by coming here. I don't agree with what's happening in the country, so I'm here to express my objections. We all disapprove of what's taking place in the country right now.
For weeks now, these opposition forces have been demanding a new, more representative government. They are worried that the Islamists are trying to monopolize the country's institutions. For them, the new regime has divided the country and it has to go. The Brotherhood will tell us they came through the ballot boxes and that they are legitimate, and we tell them that Mubarak also came through legitimacy. Mubarak had 6 months left, but we insisted and told him to go. Now we're telling Morsi to go, and we will not give up until he leaves. These rallies, which happen almost every day, often lead to confrontations with the police. Security forces respond brutally to disperse the crowds. In the month of January alone, some 60 people were killed in clashes. Morsi's supporters accuse the opposition forces of being responsible for this violence. The government, meanwhile, considers imposing rules on these demonstrations, new restrictions that will only deteriorate the situation.
This has been a week when Syrian rebels have claimed strategic advances, but President Bashar al-Assad forces remain confident of victory. Nowhere the impact of brutal fighting any clearer than in the city of Homs. It was an early battleground for sure, but as shown in this exclusive report, it is a city, at least for now, that is finding a little peace.
Is finding a little peace.
A game of soccer in the rubble of a civil war. After months of heavy fighting, people are returning to the Baba Amr district in Homs, slowly and cautiously.
You know, there's not many places in the world where you can feel how fierce and intense fighting was if you go there after the fact, but Baba Amr is certainly one of those places. The government now says it's in complete control of this area, but you can clearly see just how fierce the fighting here was.
During our visit, we couldn't find a single house left unscathed. Baba Amr was one of the first places to fall into opposition hands in the uprising against President Bashar al-Assad. It began with peaceful protests. But what followed was some of the worst fighting in the ongoing conflict, including artillery shelling and air raids by government forces and fierce urban combat that caused thousands of casualties. Now the battle is over and some shops have reopened. Business is okay, he says, but compared to when we returned 2 months ago, it has really improved because more and more people are coming back. We had a government escort with us as we toured Baba Amr, clearly making it difficult for people to speak openly with us. Regime troops have driven rebels out of many areas in Homs, but it remains a city with two faces. Just a few blocks from the utter destruction, you would never know there had been an armed conflict. The streets are full of life in predominantly Alawite areas loyal to the regime. We got a chance to speak to the governor of Homs, a man respected even by many opponents of the government. He says he believes the turmoil here is almost over. If the support of terrorism is stopped in the media and on the battlefield, I am convinced, God willing, Homs will go back to what it used to be within 4 months, he told us. The governor says he's trying to reach out to opposition fighters not affiliated with Islamist groups, even offering an amnesty for those who surrender. Rebels still control some places. The government estimates that about 7,000 are holed up in neighborhoods, especially in the old city. The fighting continues there, as fierce as ever, says one opposition activist we managed to reach on Skype. There are hundreds of thousands living in tents and hundreds of thousands living under siege, he says. There are tanks and rockets fired on a daily basis. This is what the regime and its supporters want. For many months, Homs was the symbol and epicenter of the uprising against the Assad regime. What remains is a city divided between those who want to forget the civil war and those still entrenched fighting on. And places like Baba Amr that serve as a warning to both sides what might happen to other parts of Syria if the civil war isn't brought to an end. Fred Plaikin, CNN, Homs, Syria.
We now take a second break. And before we go, a reminder of our headlines. Scores of diners, among them the Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, have graced the maiden edition of the APRC Peace and Love Gala Dinner. Out in the communities but not forgotten, a credit scheme by the Gambia Teachers Union Cooperative Credit Union that has provided 100 motorbikes for members in hard-to-reach communities. Travelers are reveling in the booming air transportation industry in Gabon as companies jostle for space in the fiercely competitive market. And anti-government protesters have amplified their call for Egypt's post-Arab Spring Revolution president to step down. That brings us to the end of the news. Thanks for joining us. And from me, Ndeku Madema, do have a very pleasant day ahead.